श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। प्रज्ञानां शुभप्रतानैः स्थिरजरनिकरव्यापिभिर्व्याप्य लोकान् भुक्त्वा भोगान् स्तविष्ठान् पुनरपि दशनोद्भासितान् कामजन्यान् पीत्वा सर्वान् विशेषान् स्वपिति मधुरभुङ् मायया भोजयन्नः मायासङ्ख्यातुरीयं परम् अमृतमजं ब्रह्म यत्तन्नतोऽस्मि. We will conduct this in English, given some of the participants on stage comfortable being talking in English. So this Mangalacharan that I just chanted, it's a very beautiful verse composed by Shankaracharya at the beginning of Mandukya Upanishad. It's beautiful because he presents the entire subject of Upanishad in this verse, and that knowledge itself is prayed to in the form of this prayer. And this is very relevant to the topic of discussion today. So I thought I'll pick this Mangalacharan. I'll quickly run through the meaning so that we can get some idea of why I said it's relevant to today. Prajnanam shubhpratanaihi sthirachara nikara vyapibhihi vyapya. That's how it starts, but ends saying yad brahma tannatosmi. So I salute, I pay my prostrations to that Brahma. And what is that Brahma? That is some.
Excuse me. आपने जिस फिल्म का कहा था ना,
हाँ,
तो आप अपने डायलॉग ये करके और एक फिल्म पहले दिखा दीजिए.
अच्छा,
फिल्म है ना, छोटी सी बनी है.
हाँ 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 हाँ, ठीक है.
वो दिखा रहे हैं.
Okay, so just a small interruption. So we have a small 2-minute movie on our digital library, which we actually have built using Sarvam AI and some of the softwares. So there's going to be a 2-minute. Let's look at it and then we'll come to this. In India, we have a great knowledge tradition, the teaching tradition called Vedanta Sampradaya, which has come down all the way from Ishvara himself and has been carried forward for hundreds of years. We are actually in a very interesting phase of human history, where artificial intelligence is actually driving a lot of initiatives in every field that you look at. One of the things we embarked on, given all the technology advances that we have today, is on a rescue mission, a rescue mission of human thought, especially the Vedantic and Advaitic thoughts which have come for thousands of years. The way this knowledge has been transmitted over hundreds of years in an Indian context, can we take it to the globe? So we envisioned a digital platform where we can have the Shankara Bhashya on the Upanishads, on various texts like Bhagavad Gita and the other Jains of Advaita, and the explanations over those Bhashyas, which is called Tika and Tippani. So there are thousands of pages of that work hidden in manuscripts and old books, which we could actually use the modern AI technologies to do a true OCR. And out of these OCR texts, many are books which have not even been published after 1800s. And some of these books have not even been translated out of Sanskrit till date. And a few books that we found were in a very dilapidated form, which needed even recovery.
We are bringing out all the Advaitic text with translation in 45 languages of the world, 18 Indian and 27 foreign languages. Our digital library is known as Advaita. It is a unique and special in its own way. We are first publishing Upanishad Bhashya with the different commentaries on it. Anandagiri, Anubhuti Prakasha, then Upanishad Brahma Yogendra, Ramachandra Pandita, etc. Second step is Bhagavad Gita Bhashya. It has 27 Advaitic commentaries.
These rare philosophical texts not just needed revival, but they also needed to be digitized and presented in an AI discoverable content format, so that it actually helps the Gen Zs and the future generations to actually have their philosophical insights rejuvenated.
We need to understand one thing is that Vedanta is a one which is available for all human beings all time, and also whether it's the age of AI or whether it's the age of Gen Z, it is for the human being. So for any human being, whatever age, modern age or the ancient age, it is available for everybody because it is relevant for everyone.
So for the first time, lot of these rare scripts we are bringing onto screen, from scripture to screen, and that is what we call as Advaita Varidhi, the ocean of non-duality.
Thank you. So just one quick note now that we have a break. So we have used Sarvam AI of Mr. Pratyush Ji, who is one of the co-founders of Sarvam AI. So he is here with us. So it's been a great help that we could have these kind of OCR and AI technologies today. So things which would have taken decades could now be done in few months. Okay. So, and I also meanwhile introduce Rahul Ji, who is a professor from IIT Delhi. So he has a lot of work done in the AI space. So he will also be actively part of this discussion. So coming back to this verse I was talking about, it is looking at Brahma, which is all pervasive, but then starts saying Prajnana Amsha. What is that Brahma? So Shankaracharya says the radiance, which is the consciousness, Prajnaha, Prajnanam Brahma, we all would have heard, right? So the only source of consciousness is me or you, right? There is no other source of consciousness, because the consciousness is never available as a this cognition. So the I cognition and the content of the I cognition is what is called consciousness, right? Devoid of all kinds of attributes. So that is the prajna. And that prajna, through its transmission or radiation, prajnana amshu prata, amshu means rays of it. So it pervades sthirachara nikara vyapibihi. So the whole perceived world is divided into two. One is sthira and one is chara. Anything which is moving and anything which is not moving. So a moving thing can be with life or without life. A car also moves and a cat also moves, right? So all the moving, it's one way of classifying. You can classify as living and non-living, but here he classifies as moving and not moving. So there are not moving ones which can be like trees, right? Itself doesn't move, walk, but it's still alive. So whatever is there in the form of an object, whether it is living or non-living, it is presented to us in the form of nothing but consciousness. So when I say a bottle exists, I have to say a bottle consciousness exists. So the existence of a bottle itself is not establishable unless it becomes an object of consciousness. So two of our sampradayas accept this, right? One is Vedanti, another even Vijnanavadi says the same thing, that you cannot establish anything unless it is an object of consciousness, right? So which means everything that I perceive in the world, that I objectify, or even as a witness I perceive, cannot be seen at any point in time as being away from this consciousness, which includes the time, which includes the space, which includes the objects. So that's why here the first line he says, Prajnanamshu pratanaihi sthirachara nikara vyapibihi vyapya. Then that is the one which is objectifying, is Brahman, right? And then the second one he says, Bhuktva bhogan stavishtan punarapi dishana udbhasitan kamajanyan pitva viseshan. So 2 ways I consume this experience of world. One is in the vacant state. There are series of experiences which is called vacant state. If you look at it from your perspective, right? Everything here is just a sequence of experiences going on. And every experience is non-separable from consciousness. So that is the vacant. Then you have the dream, where again it's a sequence of experiences, again not away from the consciousness. So that is Bhuktva Bhogan Stavishtan. Stavishtan means gross world which is perceived. Punarapi Dishanodbhasitan. So whatever is available to you inside your brain in the form of your dreams is what is called dream. Yeah, it's what is the dream, which is also an expression of consciousness. Kamajanyan, because these are derived out of your own wants. You like a certain thing, there are certain impressions which form this dream, right? And again, you cannot separate it from the consciousness. Then Swapiti Mayaya Bhojayannaha Madhurabhuk, the one who is in deep sleep, he is also enjoying a happiness, a madhurya. So in all 3 forms, as a consciousness, not away from the experiences, not being away from consciousness, I exist as in the form of this world, right? Maya Sankhya Turiyam Param Amritamajam Brahma Yattannatosmi, that kind of a Brahman which is beyond time, beyond space, because time itself cannot exist unless it is an object of perception. Again, time is pervaded by consciousness. So, the Shastra's view is all that is here is only consciousness, which includes your thoughts, your brain, everything, right? So, that is an inside-out view. Now comes the AI, right? So, this is where the Advaitic vision is all that is here is consciousness, because there is no perception which is away from consciousness. Then you have the outside-in view of how the AI functions, right? So that is where, I'm taking a little long introduction to this because I have to set a context. Why are we talking about Advaita and AI, right? Are we going to make a chatbot as a jnani or something? That's not the intent, okay? If it happens, fine. But now we have to look at why we need to compare, or why are we trying to look at AI in the context of Advaita, right? The implication of this oneness vision, which we just spoke about, that Śańkarācārya brought out, is what has driven our cultural ethos, our knowledge systems, and our concept of dharma, and all those things are built on this vision of oneness. A person's activity or response to a situation is also driven by this vision. So India is the only country where you haven't seen revolts, even after 600, 700 years of foreign invaders and all that. So until like very recently, till the freedom movement, you haven't seen revolts and people going against the kingdom. And whatever happens, there is a certain level of fungibility in the way we respond to situations, right? That is provided for by this vision, which has led us to the concept of dharma, karma, and all that. Again, the manifestation of our cultural behavior is based on this vision. Now comes the question of what is happening today, right? With AI coming in, a lot of us have offloaded our decision process, thinking process to AIs, right? It is moving towards that direction. So now, if AI is going to start controlling our life, as we start making decisions based on what AI gives us, as we start creating, chatbots which are our companions, right? We are going to have our lives handed over to chatbots from a decisioning perspective, knowingly or unknowingly. Now, when we are moving from this kind of a scenario where we were driven by a certain ethos and cultural and thinking ecosystem, which is based on the vision of oneness, into an AI world where AI starts to drive how we think, what we decide, what inputs we get, it becomes imperative to see if the way the AI's philosophical and ethics and empathy structure is built, is it really going to reflect the way we have been as a civilization, behaving so far? I think from that perspective, it is important to understand how much is AI going to be needed to be influenced by the Advaitic vision, right? That is number one. The second thing we need to see is there are also researches around, a mimic consciousness and all those things, right? So as we are again moving towards some of those biological simulations and stuff like that, how relevant is the oneness vision? So this is where the context is. So what we wanted to discuss here is not how to use AI to achieve what we want. That we know, right? That we all know how to leverage AI towards, doing OCR or any of these things. But how can, as a civilization, as a nation, as a group of people in Nyas, and the whole Advaita Vedanta Acharyas, as a community, what can we do? How do we contribute? So I'm just trying to level set what the discussion is about. So we will be focusing more around those things. Okay. So with that, I'll open it to Pratyush ji. So I had a question, right? So like I was telling, we are moving to a new society where we are driven by these AI systems and how they function today. So I just wanted your view in terms of how our overall society is changing and how the foundational AI is being built to take care of some of these ethical aspects and those kind of things.
Yeah. Hari Om. My pranams to all the Acharyas and Swamis here, and my love to all the younger ones. Thank you for the organizers to kindly invite me here. This is a very sukshma topic. I do not think I understand very much in detail. I can share my perspectives on the AI side. Given the context you have laid, I want to take a couple of views of this particular problem of how we think about AI in the context of a Advaitic thought process. So there are two views to consider. One is humanity has always built tools. If you go back to the tool of, let us say, writing, when somebody actually built a pen and they understood that you can use your opposing thumb and write in this particular way, it led to a lot of improvement in ability to share details, share ideas, transmit ideas, and so on. So tools externally have always been of value to the core purpose of a civilization. And it is very important to think of AI today as a tool. And the most important reason for that is, in our civilization, we have differentiated between the chit and vritti very, very clearly. The viveka is very clear. So no matter how intelligent the vritti is, we know that it is jada. And what is jada is only in service of the deeper instinct. Right? And to that extent, we as a civilization are probably most positively disposed about AI. There are many people in the world who worry about what AI will do. Will it take away jobs? Will it change narrative? Will it influence people? Will it bias our views? All of that will happen because of the various forces that are at play in the material world. But if you look at a thought process which is most positive about AI, I think it will be the core Advaitic thought process, because we know that a tool that is out there which can help us in terms of organization of ideas is of service to us. Right? So that is one viewpoint I would like to share, which is globally there is a lot of fear about AI and what the AI as a tool means. But if I look at the long arc of humanity, this is one of the most significant tools we have built, and something that will define how humankind explores more intellectual dimensions. The second point I want to capture is maybe not everybody here might be understanding how different the tool is compared to previous tools. But what has happened, I would say, over the last 15 years, it started with 2011, where there was a model called AlexNet that was created, that was able to recognize images much more accurately. Then in 2017, an architecture called Transformers was created by a fellow Indian, Ashish Vaswani. Then you had ChatGPT, then you had Claude, then you have agents. In a period of 15 years, the area of computer science has completely changed. We were building things in smaller silos, depending on what problem people are solving. But we have gotten in this 15 years to a place where we have a unifying system which can do most of the intelligent tasks that we are interested in. And this has come about by moving from thinking about core principles in terms of design. For example, if somebody studied computer science, computer vision, do I recognize this as a cat or a dog? If you're studying that world, there were principles that were identified. People moved forward from principles. Whereas in today's time, we are moving backwards from data. You're taking all the data in the world, you're giving it to a very, very large AI system, and it is able to learn everything. It is able to understand things at much larger scale. This is a very large change in the world of computer science and hence in society. And I think that we are still very early in the evolution of this technology. This technology will become much, much, much better. So almost you can imagine everything that we will do in our lives digitally will first touch AI and then it will touch the real world. That is the world we are going to. But I come back to the first point that in our viewpoint, this should be thought of as an aid to what we want to achieve. And I'll end with the final point. Because it is a tool, you can sharpen it for whatever purpose that you want. That's where you said about ethics. This is actually a hyper-rational tool. It is a tool that is computationally the most compressed system that we have today. So you can orient it, what is called align it, to whatever philosophies you are interested. You can align it to a pro-American point of view. You can align it to a pro-China point of view. You can also align it to a pro-Vishwaguru point of view. So these are choices we have in the design of the systems. Similarly, you can design it for making it addictive. A young person using an AI bot might become addicted to it because of the way it is designed, or you can design it to be to encourage equanimity. That is a design choice that we have, and the different people who are designing it will play a role in that. So I guess to summarize, one, our viewpoint gives a very optimistic, positive view of AI. Secondly, we are still very early in a very, very big change in the world of computer science and engineering. And thirdly, the people who build it have the power to orient it to the direction that is of interest. And hence, as a country, as a society, we should be building and aligning these systems to what we believe are the core principles.
Yeah, thank you, Pratyush. That's a very comprehensive answer. I have one small follow-up on that, right? So we do understand that AI responds based on the trainings, right? So we are training it based on the current human behavior, right? And naturally, the human behavior and what they articulate is heavily materialistic. So if AI as an engine is trained based on the corpus, which is based on the current human behavior, so would it naturally drive those kind of behavior with others who interface with it? Or how do we build certain guardrails so that it is not entirely driven only by the information training that it has? So
Yeah, so I would like to differentiate the technology from systems. The AI as a technology is a hyper rational system. You can build it to do things as per a designed set of objective functions. But the systems that people build, maybe commercially, maybe politically, there could be different choices. Right. As I said, we are very familiar in the last decade. Social media was designed to be addictive. That was a design principle to make it addictive. It is of business interest to companies to make AI also to be somewhat addictive using the base instincts of an individual being. But it is entirely possible to think of it as a hyper rational tool which can be oriented to the core ideas, right? Essentially, on the paper of consciousness, there is the ink of vrittis, but this ink can be written by different pens, and the pen is for us to design and to orient.
That's a nice analogy. Thank you. So, moving to you, Professor. I think one of the key things in how we design these systems is also the orientation of the programmers and people who actually design and architect these AI systems, right? So, as someone who has been guiding your students in terms of working on these AI platforms and trying to come up with new thought process in this space. So what are your words in terms of, how should we create a next generation of engineers and architects who have certain vision of Advaita and Vedanta in their mind when they are coming up with these architectures?
Hariom. First of all, I'd like to thank organizers for organizing this, excellent event where we have, talking about oneness and Advaita, So if we look at where our best minds are going in the country, 5 years back, 10 years back, it was, or even if you go back, let's say 20, 30 years back, our best minds were, studying electrical and electronics engineers. Then the times changed. And now, they started studying computer science. And if you look at today, our best minds, the most talented and, hardworking people, they want to study AI. They want to study robotics. And that's where the jobs are. That's where the market is going. But what we have seen in the past, when I was growing up, we were very fascinated by computers, and the internet revolution came in when I was right in the Bay Area looking at that revolution. And then ups and downs also happened. And because of it, our lives have become very easy. A lot of things we can get done at home through computers. But there's also a flip side to it. We look at the students in the colleges, we see a lot of addiction happening to social media, and a lot of, students wasting a great deal of their time in pursuits that are not going to, be helpful for them. And that trend is actually increasing. So this is an unanticipated consequence of this kind of a thing. And what I feel is what we have done in education all over the world is kept the values outside of the education. So we said that let this be science, let this be technology, we are only teaching that, and we have divorced it from the values. Now, if you look at historically Indian education, the values were taught first, and then the science and technology came later. If you look at our earlier discoveries, many of the people who made discoveries in science, metallurgy, astronomy, they were also great, in the values side. But unfortunately, we have divorced that. And because of that, the same trend is also likely to happen in the area of AI. We produce excellent AI engineers, and they can design excellent AI systems. Once they go out in the market, once they actually do their startups, what is it they're going to look for? They're going to look for their profit maximization. They're going to look for their sensory pleasure maximization. And that is what the whole world is doing as of today. But if we could also get our best minds exposed to the Advaita education, exposed to the concept and also the experience that comes with the yoga and that thing, then we have a person who has the best of AI, he can actually do startups which are the best in the world, and at the same time, he is grounded in values, he is grounded in the concept of oneness. And then the critical decisions when they have to be made, such people can actually, they would have a lot of power in the future, they would have a lot of money, they would have a lot of control. So if these people are also grounded in values and the principle of oneness and Advaita, then they can make decisions which are good for the society. And I think this is the right place where, this kind of a thing can actually be done. Because right now, our all engineering institutions, all over the world, it's anyway diverse. India is only the place where it can be done. But within India also, if you look at our technical institutions, somehow because of the culture they have set up, it's hard to do that. But a place like this which is starting up new, I think this can be done very easily. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think this question is for both of you. Is what I was initially alluding to. How should people look at the chatbots today? I think there is a lot of confusion in terms of what is an AI chatbot, right? Is it actually thinking and giving you an answer, or is it mimicking a past behavior? How much should I trust it? Should I shift my emotional? See, there are things like children are given chatbots, which answers to the kids, right? Now children think there is somebody sitting and answering there. So there is an emotional reliance also being built into the chatbots and stuff like that today. So how should people as a whole, I know he mentioned about using it as a tool, but over time we get into an addiction or a notion that there is somebody who is sitting and helping us out there. So what is the proportion of trust and behavioral change that we should see in that aspect? You can start with that and then I'll, yeah.
So it's a very interesting question. And before I answer the question, I would also like to just peep into the future a bit. Right now, we are talking about a chat bot, right? Where you type things and the answers comes in chat. In the future, you are going to talk. There will be multimedia. So you can give voice input. The chatbot will be able to see you and also give you an image, an avatar. And you will be able to see the chatbot and, it will give the voice input back. But it doesn't stop here. In fact, if you also look like 5 or 10 years into the future, we'll have robots which will be our companions sitting next to us. And they will have a face exactly like humans. If you look at some of the demos, Chinese and the American robotic companies, they build robots that can walk, they can do gymnastics, they can do kung fu. And, they can have pretty faces as well. And, they can speak, they can, be a very good servant, slave, pleasing to your ego. Now, if this technology also combines with the language technologies, you would have a virtual human which is indistinguishable in your room, in your office, in your home, in your shops, and in public places as well. Now, but, coming back to what we have today, there was a lady who got talking to a chatbot and she started believing that it's a real and it has a consciousness. And the belief was so strong that she actually did some illegal acts, because it was instigated by that chatbot. This is the news that it made. So that's one piece of I would like to share. Other thing I would like to share is recently there was a clinical trial done where an AI agent did what is called a cognitive behavior therapy. So people who are into depression, anxiety and all, there's a program that is well recognized. It's called the cognitive behavior therapy, through which they try to get them out into normal being. So they trained a chatbot, they trained an AI system to actually provide that kind of a therapy. And the results that was published in a very reputed medical journal, it was saying it's not doing as good as the best therapist, but it's much doing better than an average therapist or something like that. And still, this was a few years back. So there's a lot of potential if we look at AI and how it's going to go. On one hand, we could design these AI tools which can identify such behavior that, these people are, leaning more on us. And at that stage, they could actually be, act proactively and veer them away and maybe, give them the Vedantic knowledge and those kinds of things. It's definitely technologically, it is quite possible to do that. The question is, given the market forces, given the environment under which these tools operate, and given the competition and even other, the laws and all those things, whether it's actually going to happen. So this is something we have to think about, not only locally, but at a level of, lawmaking and also at the level of this thing. But definitely, I think, today, as we talked about, people are getting addicted to social media. So that can be easily recognized. And through AI only, we can build technologies that then get them out of it. And also we can use that medium to give them the knowledge of oneness and Vedanta. And
Thank you, Professor. So, thank you. You can add to this, but I'll ask one more question so that you can ask both of them together. He was alluding to some of the advancements in terms of clinical trial and all that. But on a broader note, we are also hearing about what they call it as connectome or whatever replications of genetic behavior, right? I was reading about fruit flies behavior, neural replication and all that. So can you throw some light on the advancements that are happening in the way scientists are trying to understand consciousness and how to replicate it? Is it even possible to mimic emotional behaviors and all that in some of the AI systems or future? So how are these evolving? So yeah, thank you.
Yes. So one word I would like to use is in the evolution of tools that humans have built, the current set of tools are humanizing. They tend to humanize the tool on the other side. And we have always built tools like the bottle. The bottle is built to fit the human hand. But when the first computers were built, they had a particular screen, particular way of interacting. Even today, if you take how many people in India know how to use a spreadsheet? It was always a bottleneck about how many people can use the computing as a tool. With AI, we are going to a place where computing is becoming humanized. So anybody can just talk, as the sir was saying, can talk in their language, can interact with something that feels like a human. In fact, it might be physical also with robots and so on. So what is happening with AI is computing is getting humanized. I think that is a very, very positive thing, because it leads to a potential for a world that is more equitable. But that is a low probability event, because mostly how things develop is that there are market forces that shape things in a particular way. If I were to little bit share this perspective, India has not been a contributor to the important platform plays in technology over the last 4 or 5 generations. Whether it was the internet, whether it was the mobile phone, the social media, even the latest stuff in AI, India has not projected its core philosophy into the design of these systems. I think with AI, we have a possibility to give the world an alternative way to think about technology as an equalizing force towards deeper concepts, right? For example, if an AI is able to write poetry, we don't have to be threatened because we know that our ground of reality is different and the core goals are different. We may write poetry for the sake of it, for the joy of it, but it is not that our existence depends on saying that I write the best poem. And this transactional world which has become to dominate our world, we can try to go more at a larger scale towards the core things. Now, to your other point about mimicking consciousness, I think this word consciousness, I think different people think differently. In the Western world, they think of it as some mechanistic process that leads to attention. That is not our understanding. Most of the work is around mimicking the neural correlates. There are certain activities that happen in the brain which you can monitor, and there are 2 parts of the brain. They inhibit each other, they accentuate each other. These signals can be measured, and often people are trying to replicate it. That has its own merits and demerits. But if you were to ask me, is it possible to humanize this technology to the extent that it feels like a person, an intimate relationship with a person over a whole lifetime? I think we will get there. It is about the respective individuals' viveka to then deal with it. But we will get to a place where just like I'm interacting with you behaviorally, I will almost feel no difference in interacting with an AI. It will, I think, happen within my lifetime. And we may also get to a place where I can implant things in my brain where I increase the amount of perception that I have of the world. These things will happen. But I guess the design problem for the world is whether we will do this in a way that it will lead to a positive outcome, or a situation where some people have a lot more capability and most of the others don't have it.
Yeah.
Hello. So one thing I noticed about that consciousness is, even in neuroscience papers, when you read about meditation, they actually don't refer to dhyana most of the time. It always refers to the dharana. But they, as if kind of dharana and dhyana are one. So in most of the neuroscience of meditation papers, you see that one. And the same thing, Swamiji also, Swami Vivekananda, when he mentions about soul, in Western context, he had to specify it as mind. Because soul, by natural, in Indian context, it is Atman. But in a Western context, most of the times they refer to as a mind. So these are some of the differences. The same thing, for consciousness, there is no standard definition. When in a Western context, a research paper or someone refers to, most of the times you will see the consciousness is natural consciousness. But consciousness in our Indian context always means the Turiya state or the ever-pervading state. So those are the differences. That's why now a lot of collaboration needs to happen between for-profit corporations, non-profit corporations, educational research institutions, and also governments, and also accessibility-based institutions. We are talking AA as a tool, but then for people with accessibility, visually challenged people, cognitive accessibility, and also for old age, our own parents, when they become old, then really AA will be a lifesaver. And those are the places where AA is just not a tool. It's just it's a very, very important platform. So all this, if we take into context, let us look at the positives and then try to develop as many applications as we can, so that the positives will drain out the negatives. Sri Ramakrishna beautifully says, if you want to stay away from West, just go to the East, don't look at the West. So in that way, let us look at the positives, flood India with the positives, so that the negatives will automatically drain out.
Yeah, thank you, Swamiji. So, a lot of you would have been wondering why I didn't even ask any question to Swamiji. It's not by design, by me, but Swamiji wanted to actually do his presentation at the end. So I told him whenever you want to pitch in, you can directly pitch in. So it's not that I didn't want to ask him anything, so don't want you to misunderstand. So yeah, coming back to one follow through on this, right? So you spoke about, both of you spoke about as a nation, you know, we should start contributing, right? We see China doing something, US is ahead. So as a nation, we want to see how we can bring our insights into this whole AI evolution. So I just had a question from, is there a structured, we read about some government programs on AI and all that. Is there a common understanding and certain framework within which the organizations are now operating, that we will see an effective outcome as a nation from this perspective? So yeah, you can start.
There is an India AI mission, which is helping in terms of support in India reaching, sort of like catching up on AI. But I do not know of a particular focus on this part. As Swamiji said, I think it is the intent and the expertise is across the spiritual organizations, across educational institutions, and sometimes some for-profit companies. And mainly it is an individual's intent, right? So I think we need a structured effort. It is a very, very fast-moving world. Unfortunately, the rate at which things are moving and the rate at which we are getting dependent on this, I think needs war footing in terms of action. But the coming together of people for the right purpose, I think, is a long-term thing that we should get done. And I think this is the opportunity. As I said, India was sort of like participating in the technology as more as a user. This time we can actually be a builder and shaper of it and demonstrate how we can create goodwill. The Sarvajana Hitaya, Sarvajana Sukhaya, that part, how do we bring with respect to AI? I think we would need an multi-organizational effort. So if you have suggestions on that, we would be happy to contribute.
So I'd just like to add another thing, that if you look at the statistics worldwide, all the Western countries have made a lot of material progress in the last 100 years or so. And if you look at the life expectancy, the life expectancy in almost all the countries have gone up, especially the developed world, from maybe 50 years to now 80, 90 years, and so on and so forth. But what has not happened is, if you look at the mental health statistics, we are getting more and more people falling sick, even more and more children suffering from ADHD and autism. And on the other end of the spectrum, adults going into Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and all of that, and even the youth, depression, anxiety, and those things. So mental health, we are sitting on a mental health disaster. And the Western medical system is not able to help. And that's where I think Vedanta and AI can come together and have a very, very big impact on the world. Half the world is depressed. If we can create a chatbot with the Vedantic knowledge, along with the scientific knowledge, and do a proper randomized clinical trials and show that they are doing much better than everybody else, then the whole world will actually, will use it. And we could make it multilingual. So, all the world languages could be supported. And this is a great business opportunity, as well as, it can have a big social impact to the whole world. So I would like to, mention that here.
Thank you.
One more important thing is, for all the AI software to run, the hardware or the chipsets, that is one of the core issues here. And we have to rely on US-based GPUs, which actually take in a lot of power. So what about on-device AI, which is happening, and where we have to focus on? So literally ARM processors are good, but again, we have to depend on the West. So RISC-V is an open source chipset. Slowly, India is adopting it. IIT Madras is taking it up. And we have to do our own hardware and own chipsets, so that tomorrow in the future, not everything needs to be running on the cloud. So we can have a hybrid system where part of the AI models can run on the cloud. Most of the things can run on-device AI itself. For example, on Life and Teachings of Swami Vivekananda, we have hardly, let's say, 20 books. Then I can cover all the teachings of Swami Vivekananda. What if it could be a downloadable model which resides on your phone, and then you can do it offline, so that you don't have to consume the huge power on the cloud side. So there, the climate change and all those happening, so this will be a great benefit. So hardware is one of the most important things. And of course, in India, it's happening now. And we have to have our own custom chipsets.
Thank you, Swamiji. I'll come to that hardware question I have on to Pratyush-ji. But before that, Professor, I wanted your views on the consciousness aspect both of them spoke about. Do you have a view on it from your perspective?
So consciousness is a very tricky topic. There was a recent, there's a YouTube channel called Closer to Truth. And there's this person who has actually interviewed so many people about consciousness. And he has written a paper. He's put all the theories of consciousness together. And he has put a paper with more than 100 theories of consciousness. There are different levels. The Vedanta is also covered, though not in that great detail as we'd like it to be. So, if you look at the Western world, the way the science has evolved, they look at consciousness as an emergent property of the matter. What do you mean by that? They've understood the matter quite well. If you look at the periodic table, the atoms and the molecules, we understand their behavior. And from there, they can synthesize chemicals, they can synthesize polymers and stuff like that. And now we have gone to the next step, that, you look at a fruit fly or a dragonfly, or, when they understand the neural structure, the cellular and biological structure. And what many scientists believe, that if you look at a living organism and look at the chemical composition, look at the neural connections, and you create that thing exactly as it is using, the same material, then it will begin to behave like a fruit fly, or begin to behave like that organism. And they extrapolate that in the future, even human being we might be able to create like that. So that is a materialistic view. And these people also, some of these people also believe that AI models can also become conscious. So that's one kind of view. If you look at the Eastern, people who are more exposed to the Indian philosophy, they think the consciousness is different from the matter, and human birth is kind of unique. And, can a robot or can a machine ever behave like a human being? And they say, no, that's not possible because our birth is kind of unique and, informed by all the knowledge. But I would like to take a position which is even going beyond this, And the position I would like to take is we talk about oneness. We say that the consciousness is there in everything, even in this bottle, even in the glass, and even in you, me, and everybody. It's the same consciousness, one consciousness. So if tomorrow, Pratyush develops a robot that can walk, then, the consciousness is there as well. And the consciousness can decide whether, it wants that particular robot to behave like a human or not. So in that sense, both the views, I think, in the view of oneness, they can be reconciled and all the possibilities are out there. And, it's an interesting time. We don't know how the world will unfold. But yeah, I'd like this.
Thank you. Before I have that question, but any audience questions we will take. After that, Swamiji is going to have a brief slide presentation. So if there are mics, you can hand over. Meanwhile, I'll ask one question to Pratyush ji on that hardware thing. So he mentioned about the chips and all that, right? So and I was also earlier referring to the neural mapping and all that. So is the industry now working together in terms of the hardware and the software that is being built on top of it? I mean, how in the country, how are we in terms of aligning the whole industries together towards AI progress? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm compelled to say one thing about consciousness. I think the definition of consciousness is very trivial. Everything that is not an object, or the only thing that is not an object, is consciousness. And from that perspective, I think we will never be able to create consciousness, right? I think consciousness is a substrate. I think that rooting is what provides optimism on AI, right? So I just wanted to share that. But in India, I think, as you said, if you think about it, we are a young population, we are an old civilization, and we have a lot of hope amongst the people to do better in life. If you combine all this and combine the fact that AI is coming and it will take away the usual means of business transaction, it will get more and more automated. So there is a real need for a strategic focus on AI capability in the country. One of those capabilities is hardware, because to run the AI, you need the hardware. And as Swamiji was saying, we need to think about AI on the cloud and AI on the devices. We unfortunately do not yet have the R&D to be competitive even in the next 5 years in terms of the hardware. So we should definitely focus more on the hardware side. Secondly, there are these AI models. There are 4 or 5 companies in the world building AI models, which are very lot of investment has gone into it, hundreds of billions of dollars. They're also continuing to rapidly move. So we need a mechanism to have what is sometimes called sovereign AI, and the government has to be part of it. The for-profit sector has to be part of it. But I think we are starting. But the seriousness of the issue and the response we have, I think there is still some gap. We need to think much more strongly about how to be self-reliant. I would not say self-reliant. I would say how to be invulnerable to the external world with respect to the AI.
Thank you. So questions?
Hari Om. Sir, I have a question. You know that AI was used, Anthropic was used in Venezuela war, in Iran war. Hello. Am I audible now? Yeah. So we know that Anthropic was used in Venezuela war, in Iran war. So how far are we from such an AI system, or let's just say a simple chat bot that, for example, we can train it on Bhagavad Gita. Someone opens their chat bot, they say that my life is having such and such situations, and that chatbot responds in teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So sort of like Sri Krishna says, in such situation, you can act this way, you can think this way. How far are we from such a thing, and how difficult is it to create?
We could not hear you very well, but I think you were talking about anthropic and usage of in AI in war, and whether Bhagavad Gita can teachings can also help. The technological capability is there. If you asked a question, you can get an answer. But most of what is happening in the war is not value judgment. Value judgment has happened before they decided to go to the war. It is more mechanical as to what needs to be done. In that case, it is pretty brutal whether to shoot or not to shoot. But the value judgment should happen before the war even starts. And there are abilities in the technology already today to provide that help.
Hari Om. I have one question for the panelists. Yeah. Am I audible? Yeah. So in Advaita intelligence, Advaitic intelligence, like the highest form of intelligence is not merely speed, memory, or computation, but awareness and awakened consciousness is something which is important in this. Though the teachings of Adi Shankaracharya and examples we had like Shatavadhanis, we recently see yesterday, Sahasravadhanis also, they are just like conscious GPUs, right? Now, at the same time, we are increasingly humanizing the computing. There is also a concern that human beings themselves may slowly become computerized. Now, the question is, are we as a civilization becoming overly focused on developing artificial intelligence while neglecting the cultivation of higher human consciousness and the real intelligence? Second question is, are we humanizing computing? How do we ensure that humans themselves do not become mechanical, reactive, and dependent on unconscious external locus systems for the truth and decision makings? Am I clear?
Yeah. Thank you. I thought we covered some of this in the session, but you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess the only way for this, what we are seeing, for example, in the colleges and all, is that when we give them students a question or a homework assignment to answer, half the students do it sincerely, but the other half students make use of the AI and answer that using that. And this is a great danger because it is impacting their learning. So all the learning methodologies need to change across the board. And that's where Advaita Vedantic teachings can be of great help. This is a very good time where, we can inculcate the knowledge of meditation, dharana, dhyan, samadhi, pranayam, all those things in the schools and the colleges. Because, even if you look at engineering education, the students who do very well are the students who are very well disciplined, who know how to discipline their mind, how to meet the deadlines and all. And what we see invariably after they graduate, a student may have done a mechanical engineering, but he may be doing AI or computer science or things like that, or even banking after they graduate. And they do that really, really well. And the reason that happens is through that academic drill, we have trained them to, to be disciplined, to train their mind, and to be focused on the goal. Now, this is done implicitly through training in mechanical engineering, computer science, and different disciplines. But now, if you can introduce that directly into the course at the college, in the school levels, then that way it will help us in, getting over the negative side effects of the AI that is happening in the society. So that's one of the methods I think.
Good morning.
Namaste. I have one question regarding what was discussed here, like mimicking consciousness, and also regarding what in Advaita Vedanta we call as the qualifications of the person or the moral life of the person. So suppose the person start depending on the chat GPT or AI, are we not going to lose our own thinking pattern? Are we not going to lose our own emotions? Because every human being is a unique human being with a unique way of thinking. So AI is going to mechanize our thinking. So what do you think about that, Om?
Yeah. I think that is a very fair sentiment. It was there in the previous question also. But I think that is a possibility. The possibility is that we outsource our intelligence to something else and we become less capable. I personally, for example, I used Google Maps a lot, and then after a while, I don't know how to navigate a city. That is an entirely possible thing. But I think that because this technology is so capable, there is a positive side where you can amplify your own intelligence with this. It is like having access to a very hyper-rational, capable thinker all the time. We didn't have it. Society did not have access to such level of intelligence for each person. So that is also a possibility. The question is, what will become the dominant outcome? If we let market forces shape it, it will be the former. But as individual sadhakas, I think we can use it for positive outcomes. So even if I use Google Maps, I can decide where I want to go, and that I can optimize for.
No. My question is that suppose as you say that GPS we are using, or I am like, suppose I write a paragraph and I want to make it better, then AI can help me. But if I ask AI to write the topic, that means I'm stopping my own thinking. So as we say that more we are on the computer, we are not using more our hands and legs. Now AI is stopping our brain to think. That is what my question is.
Yeah, I think I wanted to just add to what she was saying, right? See, I am seeing this even in this generation software programmers. The whole Claude and other, forget Claude, even a Gemini giving you a source code. I see people just assembling together this code and eventually not, holding a grip on what it is doing. So every time a small change is, tried to be incorporated, they completely rely on the AI. And over time, I'm seeing people losing their edge in their ability to even create programming, right? I think it can happen to anything, any field that you take. People even, I've seen like software solutioning responses even 2 years back. People used to just get your co-pilot or something, give you the response, and then they just send it across. So I think, is it not reducing our capability to handle situation is, I think, her question. So just one small point, right? See, when it comes to some of these very complex things, yeah, we can use it as a leverage to achieve it with minimal effort. But as people start using it for simple items, like in US, we find people use calculator for everything and they don't know how to add 3 plus 6. So we have reached a stage where people can't do mental math even in a basic situation, right? I think that is where she has a question. How do we avoid those kind of things?
One addition I will do. Now, I learned just recently that when somebody writing the PhD thesis, they said that only 10% AI you can use. And so when somebody is presenting the thesis, the college first will see that how much this person has used AI for writing this thesis. That means they want something which is from your brain, not from AI. So PhD also now in colleges, they have put the restriction that for writing my PhD thesis, I can write only 10% of AI information. Rest of should be my own. That's what I'm telling.
Yeah. So one thing I would say, most of our day-to-day life is in the transactional world, where we are actually so worried about self-worth, and we are comparing. So why is the PhD condition there? Because they want to compare your PhD and some other PhD and ensure that it is that you have actually done it, right? So I think we are at a place where we give too much value to the output of the human effort in relation to business transactions. I feel AI will push us, even in the coding world. If AI can code, please code, let AI code. Why do we want to build software engineering as a field of human endeavor? I fully think that the most realistic outcome will be that we will tone down our own abilities. That is a bad outcome, but there will be a potential positive outcome for people who leverage this. That is the point I would make, but I fully hear the Mataji's sentiments.
So maybe
I
can
also want to ask, what about the emotional part of it? You know, there has been recently a paper which says that it will tell you exactly what you want to hear. It's the best sycophant you can have around you. It will remove the need of people around me, or we'll start depending on AI because it says exactly what I want to hear instead of human beings who will tell me what I need to hear.
So let me add to that question. So, there are both aspects to this. So one aspect, when you look at academic environment, what we have seen, earlier my students used to take 2 years to write something nice. Now they can do it in a month's time. And this is because, they were coming from different language backgrounds and all of that. They didn't know, but they were very sharp and very talented. So it's a great enabler for such students because now they don't feel that disadvantage because of just the language. That's one part of it. Now, the other part of it is, if I look at a computer science and, I think of, teaching students how to program. Now, many students don't really, they end up using AI to actually do their assignments. And assignment is where the learning happens. Now, one of the solutions that we thought about is, we have to embrace it. AI is going to stay. So we should not discourage our students from use of AI because once they go to the jobs, even the employers will encourage them to use AI. So that training is necessary. But on the other hand, the training to think on their own, training to write their own code is also important. Now, how do you do that? And that we are finding it very hard to do in an environment like ours because they have the hostels. Even if you shut down computer access, they have mobile phones. But that's where I think Gurukulas can play a very big role. Because in a Gurukula environment where there's much more control and much more interaction of the student, a one-to-one relationship between student and teacher, then the teacher can explain to them that, look, this assignment you completely do on your own. Later you can use AI, but right now you need to develop these skills. So with that kind of pedagogy, I think we can get the best of both worlds in the future.
Okay, sir. We can take couple of questions, but on Advaita and AI, okay? No
Sir,
more questions on will I become dependent on AI kind of questions.
One thing I want to
Anything on Advaita and AI you can focus on now.
Sir, I have one question. I'm a counselor and a lot of students and clients, mentees come to me and they tell me that for their problems, psychological problems, they find their solutions on the AI and I have also tried to explore it, like what kind of solutions AI can give. And because I come from the Advaita background as well, so my AI is trained like that, it will phrase the answers according to Advaita when it is answering me. So it is sometimes giving really meaningful answers. I will not say it is not giving meaningful answers. I tried to explore further, like what is the basis of the answers this AI is giving me. So I saw that it is working only on pattern recognition on a larger scale. And when it is doing it on pattern recognition, so the answers are going to be generic. Right? And it is a huge trend and it is an increasingly like people are developing an addiction where they are just talking to AI for comfort. So this is heading in a very wrong direction if I see. So is there any counterintuitive methodology which the people from the backgrounds of AI should introduce ethically to, put a break before it becomes a pandemic where people are just talking to AI?
Just one thing I want to add here. Before studying Advaita Vedanta, one prerequisite is what we do is we read the Nyaya process of thought. So that actually gives us critical reasoning. So what Mataji is also talking about is critical thinking that is gone. In the sense that the overall knowledge is improving, but the problem is everyone thinks alike. That's the thing. So Advaita Vedanta with Nyaya, what happens is everyone is made to think individually. So just like a Shankara and Buddhistic traditions, when they have a debate, it is not homogeneity. Each one maintains their own thing. So such things have to come up it is not forced by government, it is not forced by organizations, it has to come within the person. So that has to be instilled. That's why we should not start young, especially with social media and including AI also. So since you have seen like Australia has a ban above 16 years, and I think slowly every country is following that. So same thing could be done for AI also, where we should not start too young. So by the time the critical thinking has come up, and then we can do the thing. So that is one aspect which we have to do it.
Yeah.
And emotionally also, very young children, below 16 or 18, they are vulnerable. So they don't have a process of thought. Even WhatsApp messages in social media, if you see, lot of false information is there. But then children, when they start young, they think, oh, every message coming from WhatsApp is a correct message, because they are not able to distinguish. So critical thinking has to be done from the parent side, education side, and all those. It cannot be forced upon by any governments or other institutions also. As non-profits, what we do is, we have one example called Nachiketa Lab. We come in, where people from peer pressure, parental pressure, they just come there, freely they work on the positive aspects of it. The moment you start thinking everything negative, then all the problems will be there. So that is why our Ranganathanji Maharaj, 13th President of Ramakrishna Matan Mission, everything he sees it in a positive way. When you put all the things positive, many things come out. But of course, you have to have guardrails, you have to be cautious, and all those reasons are there. But these are the things that you can probably take care of.
Sir,
Can I just add?
May I
a
say
little
something,
bit?
sir? Please. Yeah.
So, this is an excellent question.
Yeah, Hari Om, yeah. Just very briefly, I will say, I have very categorically seen three distinct advantages of AI. First thing is, it not just becomes access to large amount of information, but we can get a creative interpretation out in the field of science, in the field of spirituality. Whenever anybody has a question, you don't always have to ask somebody. You can learn by yourself. So you can be a self-learner. That's the biggest advantage. Second thing I have seen is AI is truthful. It doesn't lie anything. Someday in the college, we were discussing something, we asked a problem to AI. They gave a solution which was wrong, which was not right. So we corrected it and it said, sorry. Then we asked, are you really saying sorry or what? He said, no, I'm not feeling sorry. I just saying formality. So it's very truthful. It never leads us to anywhere wrong. And only as far as consciousness aspect, what we discussed is here. So consciousness is something which gets reflected through all the adjuncts what we have. So whatever consciousness that is reflected through mind, body, and intellect can only be attended by this AI, not beyond that. That's my feeling.
Hari Om. Here. This is Shankari. Yeah. I have a couple of questions because after getting into Advaita Vedanta, I'm quite happy that my teachers or the sannyasis that teach us, they don't use AI. So that's a huge relief. Phew. So thank you. So AI usually is trained on huge amounts of data, not just text or image, but conversations. For example, social media conversations and out of social media conversations, recordings, because we have transcribing services as well. So do you think a huge amount of Indian knowledge system or Indian philosophical data information is used to train AIs in the current generation? If yes, then how is Sarvam AI or Indian AI tools are going in this direction? Are they doing it? And values. So usually, since AI is trained mostly on Western data, their value systems are quite different from the value systems of the East. For example, Indian value systems. Do you think Sarvam AI or Indian AI tools would really do justice and give us answers according to the Nyaya, Sastra, and Advaita Vedanta? What steps are you taking into this direction?
I think the few things that you said, right? One is that the Indian knowledge systems are available for everybody, right? Across the world or maybe universe. So I think everybody should and is training their models with this data, this knowledge, because it is out there. Of course, there are certain granthas, certain vakyas which are maybe not digitized, and we are digitizing them. But I think as a civilization, we should make this knowledge available to everybody. So every model is having access to it. And that is the case. Today, if you talk to a Claude or ChatGPT, it will say fairly very reasonably accurate things about this. Secondly, at Sarvam also we are working on this. If you think about Sarvam, our mission is to firstly have an alternative in India to train these models, because these models become such an important component in a post-AI world. We should have at least some alternative, and it is very expensive to build. It requires engineering, it requires compute. We are trying to solve those problems. With respect to mirroring our philosophical realities much better, we need guidance and help. That's why I was talking to Swamiji from the Ramakrishna Mission also. For example, if Ramakrishna Mission says, we will help think what a positive AI looks like, right? It can be actually designed for, we can put out both what we know from the Shastras and the lived experience of people on the path. I think that can be put into it, but that is something that needs to happen at the intersection of missions and a company like Sarvam. And I think, frankly speaking, there is intent in the name. Why it is called Sarvam is because we want everybody to have access to it. See, we were talking about how it might slow down our thinking, but imagine a village here, which is maybe 50 kilometers away. Students might not have access to good teachers, and AI might actually enable them to learn better, right? So that part of the AI is also there. That is what we have to amplify. That is the job that we have. Yeah.
Hari Om, Hari Om. Hari Om, just a minute. Sir from IIT said about consciousness, and one paper published, and you said, not audible? Audible. All those consciousness models, you said 100 or sort of models. Is there any model which says we can experience that? Whereas we have Advaita system, only Advaita system, which tells you can experience before death. Jivan Mukta, he experiences that. So the thing is that which is experience based and system given to experience to anyone who wants to, and those who walk the path, they experience the same thing and corroborate. How can there be so many consciousness models in existence? That there can be only one truth. That is one part. Second is, somebody said our Swami is not using AI, etc., etc. Just I'm switching the topic a little bit. Second is, I am heavy user of AI. My experience, feedback, on my topic of specialization, like Nyaya and Vedanta, AI's initial reply is always a nonsense. I'm sorry to say. In my opinion, AI, I use 5 to 6 models to know how it thinks on that. I being trained logician in Indian system and also Advaitic systems, what I find is it is an intelligent student, not an intelligent professor. That is the level of AI. So that is good. I keep on arguing, and one best thing I found is that every time it takes me to Advaita. That is correct. But initially the reply is exactly against. When logically argued, it surrenders, and finally it takes you to the Advaitic reply. Then finally I say, as somebody mentioned here, are you putting me in an echo chamber just to satisfy me? So I do not know. You please tell me, because it takes it to Advaita. Whether that AI noted that I am from Advaita field or not, I do not know. But the final answer, when logically countered, it has no other alternative than Advaitic position.
So I think, let me answer your first question. I'll request Mr. Pratyush to answer the second one. So the first one you're talking about, there are more than 100 theories and there has to be only one. So what he has done is just proposed the theories out. And these, he has actually compiled, different people have proposed the theories, and he has just compiled them together in one place. That, okay, these are the existing theories, including Vedanta is also there, though not in as much detail as you'd like it to be. But the job of our scientific enterprise is now, as Shankara did, that, each of those theories, you debunk them. You say that, if this theory is correct, then this thing must be true. And this experiment you perform, or by logical argument, to debunk those theories. And the theories that we think is true, not only propose the theories, but also propose experiments that can be done to verify different parts of the theory or to refute the theories. So once we have that, when we start working on it, and I think I would welcome all the Advaita scientists who are here to actually look at that paper and start writing articles in international journals and conferences to actually do that. And I'll give you one example that has happened in the past. Somebody wrote a very bad book about Swami Ramakrishna. He put in a very bad light. And then one monk from the Swami Ramakrishna order went to the US, did a PhD, and then debunked each and every point of that, and to the level that he offered an apology. So, right now we have so many theories of consciousness. We have done so much work. I think this has to be brought out to the world. Thank you.
Hari Om. So my question is that I have heard a lot of news that open AI or generative AI like ChatGPT is using a lot of fresh water to cool down the system after responses. So how India is planning to move forward with sustainable AI for future generations? Develop sustainable AI.
Yeah, so currently these systems are very expensive, and they are, as you said, water, power, even the semiconductor, it is causing some problems globally. I would look at it as an evolution, and these things will become more cheaper over time. The improvements in the models that we see are very stark, that they warrant this kind of investment. I just wanted to also address the Swamiji. So if you look at where we are in year 3 after ChatGPT, and the models have improved very rapidly, very quickly. Of course, people are focusing on mathematics, coding, physics, and doing it. People are not necessarily focusing on Advaita and the Navya Nyaya or any system that we have. There is a real value in training these models more deeply on the principles that we have. But I can only say that these models, I would be surprised if I'm not surprised again and again about how capable these models are, right? They will continue to improve. They are not pattern recognizing systems. We have hit a new way of scaling up intelligence in mechanical systems. Whichever axis we want to improve them, we are able to improve them as long as it is a rational axis. So I think work has not been done, but it can be done, and these models will improve.
Yeah, I think those two questions, right? It's a little bit about also understanding. So how well we have trained the AI models based on the amount of information we have will help the models to answer you properly, right? So I think if it is not happening, if it is not answering the Nyaya questions properly, means we don't have the model being trained with adequate right kind of inputs. So it's again on us to make sure that it has everything it needs to answer us properly. So
hello sir, Hari Om. So Advaita says that Brahman exists everywhere, right? Brahman exists everywhere in the universe, everywhere. So for example, if we take 0 as Nirguna Brahman and 1 as Saguna Brahman, so if we take electronics, so everything runs on binary, the churning of 0 and 1. So when it comes to quantum technology, so we have something called superposition, like where 0 and 1 exists at the same time. I mean, in normal words. So if we merge that quantum computing with AI, will we be able to create something new thing in electronics? I won't say consciousness, but will it give something advanced? I also have another question. So we have chips getting implanted into the brains right now in other countries. They are advancing. So with our sadhana, with our meditative state sadhana, Anandamaya Kosha, everything, why can't a human match the AI with sadhana?
So yes, I can answer at least, some things little bit I know. So you're talking about why can't human match, AI with the sadhana. And this has been, shown over and over again that, we have so many yogis in the past that have done the tremendous things only with the sadhana. So I don't think there's any equivalent to that. So, if somebody reaches the epitome of the sadhana, he can just, definitely surpass AI.
Okay, so I think we will end the session here
excuse me.
from discussion perspective. So Swamiji is going to give a summary view, stitching it all together. So over to you, Swamiji.
You can show them the slides, huh? Slides. So we have been looking. Hello? Yeah. We have been looking at the theoretical aspects, but Swami Vivekananda, he has always been very much vocal on the practical Vedanta. One time in one of his lecture, he beautifully says, I have been asked to say about the practical position of the Vedanta philosophy. Theory is very good indeed, but how we are going to carry it in practice? If it is absolutely impracticable, no theory is of any value, and it's just an intellectual gymnastics. The Vedanta must be intensely practical. We must be able to carry out and practice every part of our lives. So out of this, we created one project called Samsmriti Darshanam. So this project is quite challenging and cutting edge. It is transforming Vedantic knowledge into practical spiritual methodologies for preventive mental well-being, because now the younger generation is having that emotional well-being problems. Utilizing both AI and mixed reality technologies, we are trying it out. One thing, if you know about behavioral psychology, if you identify the primary stress responses, you will know about fight or flight. And now the freeze and the fawn, these four have been added. They are instinctive mechanisms in response to perceived a threat or a distress. So what this project aims to do is, it aims to transform these instinctive patterns through constant remembrance of the Vedantic knowledge. So we call it Samsmriti. It's a recollection. And also Darshanam. It is an insightful perception. So using a combination of these two, we cultivate reflective awareness and then try to solve the problem. So this will be used as a tool, and once you start accustomed to it, it can be a trainable skill. So the idea is, we have negative emotions such as stress, anxiety, anger, which could arise in social interactions in the day-to-day world. So if you can use a triangulate of wearable devices, in the future, the phone will be replaced by your smart glasses with a camera. Then you have the earpods, but that will be added with EEG sensors, brain sensors will be there. And also the wearable watches and the rings that are already there. What if these could detect the physiological parameters on the objective side? So if emotions could be measured on the objective side, and also on the subjective side, let's say you have a emotional journal or a diary that you're writing. You collate this, you correlate this, and then try to find out a person is suffering from certain negative emotions. Once that's done, instinctively, this is a very difficult project, but what we can try to do is, with your smart glass, whenever you are having a negative emotion, let's say a verse from Gita or the Upanishads, or if they are not interested in the verses, a short video combining these morals can be shown on your glasses, on a smartphone glasses. So once this is done, it is all about recollection and visualization at the opportune moment. So we see sometimes when you are very angry, we drink a glass of water and then we think about a Gita verse. The same thing, we use technology to help in. You can now see a short video who is being constantly criticized, a boy, and he sees Sri Ramakrishna's parable in the form of a short video. It is a story of a young monk and a snake, where the monk tells the snake, when you get angry, don't bite a person, meaning do not react to the anger violently. So he says, hiss, but do not bite. Do not become a slave to the anger. You can see the short video. With sound is there, music. It is not done. Yeah. The next one, this project has been selected in ANR of Government of India, second round. So we have applied for a grant, and once it gets approved, we'll let you know. And the next one is the generative AI platform, which is again a chatbot. So we can do for Shankaracharya's all the scriptures and everything. We have attempted for Swami Vivekananda. How we differ here is, of course, we feed in Swami Vivekananda's books using the RAG model and all those. So we call it Illam. It is called a Tamil word called a home to AA and LLM. So how we differ here is, we don't use the costly NVIDIA GPUs, but in this case, we have tried using ARM processors from the Mac systems with a unified GPU. So we have stacked in 4 or 5 Mac studios and then did it. Since the number of people accessing is less, we can somehow manage it. So what we mind here, even in creating the systems, we worry about climate change and all those. So ensure that our work, whatever we are implementing, doesn't cost too much of power. So the same could be done with the next slide, the life and teachings of Ācārya Śańkarji in the form of a 3D spatial experience. So where the visitor can ask questions in a natural language format, and Shankaracharya will appear on the screen and answer the questions. So this could be installed in a museum or educational institutions. The next one is an interesting one. Since we talked about scanning books and all those, now the trend is to do the 3D digital scanning. If you have visited Kaladi, where Shankaracharya was born, the places and all those continuously evolve and change. So what if we could actually preserve that using 3D scanning? Nothing better than that. Now there is a technology called Gaussian splatting, with which you can recreate in its original. And with generative AI and mixed reality, let's say you go on a pilgrimage to all over India where Shankaracharya has visited. Then you wear your glasses, then with the GPS locations, and using generative AI about Kaladi Ashram, if you go to Kaladi, then the whole history will appear in the form of an immersive video. So these are some of the unique projects that we can take it up. So we have done similarly for Swami Vivekananda, and it has been selected by Government of India DST, and we have been awarded 83 lakhs, around $100,000 for this project. The next one is the Kathopanishad, the Yama Nachiketa story. This we have read it in books and all those. But one of the person from NRI, US, he actually wants his grandchildren to read Kathopanishad. He has been giving a lot of books and all those, but still the children will not read. So we wondered, what if we could create a 15-minute immersive experience, a room where we create kind of an Yamaloka and where the Yama and Nachiketa are there. If you see these children, they're completely absorbed in this kind of Indian knowledge systems because of this technology. So immersive medium is one thing where we can pitch in and then help. So we have built one where in Chennai and in Delhi, where you can come in and the Yama Nachiketa story, it is shown in a 15-minute episode. And you have all the effects, the smoke effects and the seat vibration, holographic displays and all those are there. So this is one of the projects that we have done. The same thing, we could do a creative interpretation of the Shankara story. This is a Shankara model, which we have done. The next slide. Yeah. The crocodile story, if you just see, we read it from books and all those. But what if we could visualize much more? This is where generative AI come in. We pitch in some ideas and then you get it more enhanced. Suppose this river is there, Purna river. So you have the samsara. The river is the samsara. And then Shankara, you can consider him as a jiva here. Then you have the sun, where the Paramatma is there. Let's say from there you get the Viveka and Vairagya. And the crocodile is there, where you have the Maya, or Sri Ramakrishna says the Kama Kanchana. So all those could be nicely done. And if an immersive story could be developed by children itself. So these are the projects, instead of opposing AA and telling, oh, these are not the good things, let the children come in, use these tools to develop such kind of content. So this will be a very good thing. So we have this Nachiketa lab where we are training them, like they come at 8th standard, 9th standard and all those. Once you train them in positive things, they'll be not addicted to social media or AI chatbots itself. And next one, there is a hyper-realistic video which we have done in a couple of days itself. You can play the video. It is called Victory of Advaita, Calming the Storm of Samsara. It is very obvious video. In Omkareshwar, you will be all aware. You can play the video. Now think of this video. Without AI, if someone has to do it, it is an impossible task with a lot of money and budget, but at a fraction of a cost. And if children could be encouraged, and if the younger generation could be encouraged, these kind of good videos could be done. And for accessibility, we have worked on it also. We call it Netravani. It is another project, especially for the visually challenged. It is about Indian storytelling. Remember in our childhood, where grandparents and parents, they kind of tell the stories. Now this is almost gone. So we want to recreate all those things, where parents also actually tell the stories, but at the same time, we want to have a digital format also. Recently in Coimbatore, there was a fest, just like a literary fest. There is something called Literary Tales, where children were brought in and they were introduced to the storytelling. Now even the Harry Potter book has become something called an immersive audio book, where a 360 surround sound is there. So the watchwords are immersive, which is your immersive media, a 360 audio, intelligence, which is the generative AI, and then the Indianness has to be there, where the Vedantic storytelling based on the Indian knowledge systems has to be there. If you see, what is this immersive media? 60 years back, we have something called stereo audio, which is using your 2 ears. But what if I say that your brain can mimic a 360-degree audio? So you have the Yama Nachiketa story and the Vajasravas, and also the chanting which is going on, the crackling of the Homa fire and the Yamaloka audio. If all this could be simulated in your brain, how wonderful it will be. You don't have to even see the visuals. The audio itself will be excellent. And the chanting, if it can come in 360 audio, nothing better than that. So we are working on this. But the best part is, this whole project will be executed by the visually challenged themselves. So it is not the normal people, but the visually challenged will come and pitch in and then help. So these are some of the things that we could do with generative AI. Then the smart toy. Now if you see, I'm not for the AI smart toys, but just because it is there, we have to create an alternative. What if we could create a Śańkara smart toy? Swami Vivekananda says in one point, the abstract Advaita must become living, poetic in everyday life. And all this must be put in a form so that a child may grasp it. That is my life's work. So Swami Vivekananda is for children learning Vedanta. So what we have done is, on Vivekananda we have done, we could do the same equivalent thing, which can analyze the emotional well-being of the children and then probably train them to do meditation, chanting, and then inspiring stories also. We have to make sure, of course, they don't become addictive, but with proper guardrails in place, instead of the outside dolls which we get from China and US, we could have our own indigenous toys. So a similar version for Swami Vivekananda, we have developed a prototype, and Government of India had done a toycathon, and out of a lot of idea submissions, this Narendra Smart Toy won the first prize in creative out-of-the-box category, logical thinking category. The next one is all about meditation. We talk about practical Vedanta, but then we have to follow it. So meditation is one of the key things that we have to do, morning, afternoon, and evening. But meditation has always been subjective. And we were wondering if the quality of the meditation can somehow be measured objectively using cognitive neuroscience and of course from something called neurophenomenology, which also measures the subjective experience as well. But then we read almost 20-25 years of research papers from PubMed, Nature, Elsevier, Springer, and all those. We found it is still in infancy when it comes to meditation. And most of the times they talk about dharana, not the dhyana. Then we thought, since meditation is such a complex phenomena, and there are varieties of meditation, you have the focused attention where you focus on one, then you have the open monitoring, which is your vipassana and all those. Then there is also a non-dual awareness meditation coming in scientific circles. So measuring it is not possible until now. But then what we thought was, now with generative AI coming in, when we try to meditate, let's say for 1 hour, probably 30 minutes our mind will be wandering and 20 minutes will be drowsy also. So literally 10 minutes you are trying to do dharana. So what if we measure the negative aspects of it and then try to say that, see, you are only meditating for 10 minutes. If you can do that, that itself is a big thing. So once we get the data for the mind wandering and the sleep onset, which is of the drowsiness state, then at least we'll be able to quantify, say that, oh, because of this negative parameters, you're able to meditate only so much amount of time. So this we call a meditation quotient. So whenever our mind is wandering, what if we give a haptic feedback or a biofeedback? The best part about biofeedback or neurofeedback is every time when you give it, after 5 times or 10 times, your body and the mind automatically starts doing it on its own without even receiving the outside feedback. So this can be a tool which could help you in the meditation. Finally, so we have created Nachiketa lab, which I was telling you. So where the STEAM, you have the science or spirituality. So earlier STEM labs you would have heard of, which is only talks about science. But we want to combine all the projects, let's say in AI or IoT or mixed reality in terms of spirituality. So we want to practically bring in children and then help them. So S stands for science or spirituality, T is technology, then you have engineering, A for arts. Definitely we have to encourage painting and other things also, and music and all those things. And M is for math or medical. Medical in the sense that I want to focus on the emotional well-being, mental well-being aspects also. So bringing them, the younger generation, offline and on campus is very important. It's not just like everything would be done online. Just having here, gather here and then discussing, that is much more important. And more on the stage, but if you discuss offline in a very informal way, many great things could be done. So this is one of the first team labs which we have done in Chennai Mutt, where it is all informal learning and community-based mentoring is there, free from parental or peer pressure, which I was discussing you. And one thing the younger generation really want is, when we found a lot of people coming in, we think when they come to Mutt, they will want peace of mind or happiness. But definitely it's not the case. Most of the time we see that they want a purpose. They feel somehow unworthy and they want a defining purpose to their life. So that is one of the key aspects. And recently we read some articles in New York Times and CNN also. The most highest rate of suicides that is happening among younger generation is because they lack purpose. So they feel they are not worthy enough. So in order to counteract that, this Nachiketa lab, and apart from it, we call it Digi Seva. So how you can serve an institution or how you can serve an organization through digital means, that is one of the key efforts. So by digital means, we think a basic work and computers and all those. But we want to take it to the next level. We want to have all cutting edge technologies and working and then collaborating with institutions like Sarvam AI, profit corporations and all those institutions, and then come up with very good projects. So if you're interested, you can also participate here. So our ultimate objective to end with is, what we want is, we want people or self-transformation. Digital and AI transformation would just be a side effect in this purpose. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Swamiji. And thanks to both Pratyush ji as well as Rahul ji for this wonderful session and sharing their insights to all of us. So,
बहुत धन्यवाद आदरणीय स्वामी
परम शिवानंद जी, डॉक्टर प्रत्युष कुमार, डॉक्टर राहुल गर्ग और डॉक्टर कल्याण बुद्धराजन जी, बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण विषय हमारा ये था अद्वैत और हमारी जो आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस जिसे हम समानांतर ज्ञान सत्ता के रूप में आज पाते रहे हैं, लेकिन जिस तरह से इस कृत्रिम बुद्धिमत्ता को अद्वैत के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में देखने की जो कोशिश की और जिस तरह से स्वामी जी का जो प्रेजेंटेशन था वो इस अर्थ में बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण था कि हम अद्वैत को और कृत्रिम बुद्धिमत्ता को दोनों को सामने रखकर जब देखते हैं तो किस तरह से हमारे भारत की इस आध्यात्मिक और सांस्कृतिक चेतना को, भारत की बौद्धिक संपदा को हम कैसे अलग अलग करके और कैसे मिलाकर देख सकते हैं और किस तरह से ये टेक्नोलॉजी हमारे सामने खड़ी होती है। ये सारी की सारी जिज्ञासाओं का भी बल्कि उन्होंने एक नया आसमान खोल दिया है कि कैसे हम अब देखें, किस तरह से अपना कदम आगे बढ़ाएं। ये प्रेजेंटेशन मुझे लगता है कि शायद हमारे इस पूरे शंकर प्रकटोत्सव के जो विचार सत्र हैं उसमें बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण सत्र था। मैं बहुत ही आभार प्रकट करता हूं स्वामी जी के प्रति, प्रत्युष जी के प्रति, राहुल जी के प्रति, कल्याण बुद्धराजन जी के प्रति। इसके बाद अंतराल, आप सब जानते हैं कि महत्वपूर्ण अंतराल है। आप सब प्रतीक्षा भी कर ही रहे हैं कि हम भोजन की ओर प्रवृत्त हों, तो भोजन के बाद आप सबसे अपेक्षा बनी रहेगी कि आप यहाँ आकर स्थान ग्रहण कर लें। हमारे उसके बाद के जो सत्र हैं उसमें जो महत्वपूर्ण सत्र होगा हमारा एक भारत आचार्य शंकर के पद चिन्हों पर चलते हुए कैसे एक भारत की संकल्पना हम करते हैं। इसमें एन वेंकटरमन, स्वामी परिपूर्णानंद सरस्वती जी, सुश्री अनुराधा गोयल हमारा मार्गदर्शन करेंगी। आपके प्रश्नों का भी इस सत्र में स्वागत हम करेंगे। उसके बाद 5 बजे से हमारा अद्वैत और विश्व शांति पर केंद्रित सत्र होगा। रात्रि भोजन के साथ ही रसो व सह की संस्कृति के रंगों महक से गुलजार हमारी सभा पार्वती बाउल गायन प्रस्तुत करेंगे। बंगाल के भक्ति संगीत का एक बहुत ही चटक रंग होता है वो, और उसके साथ नमामि देवी शीर्षक से डॉक्टर रमा वैद्यनाथन भरतनाट्यम शैली में नृत्य की प्रस्तुति देंगी। सभी सत्रों का ख्याल रखें, सुविधापूर्वक समयबद्ध आपका उसमें हिस्सा रहे, ऐसी आप कोशिश करिएगा। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
वो वेंकट जी हैं, वेंकट जी हैं। हरिओम। किसी का मोबाइल छूटा हो तो कृपया